What if the biggest hit of your career was a song that you never wrote and you never even meant for anyone to hear? For Pearl Jam, one of the biggest bands on the planet, that's exactly what happened. In 1999, a simple cover of a tragic 60s ballad, recorded as a total throwaway for their fan club, eventually found its way to radio. The result was something that no one saw coming. It became the band's highest charting single ever, and it locked in their new drummer, and it ended up raising millions for charity. On top of all that, it had the biggest jump in the singles chart history. This is the strange and kind of heartwarming story of the cover song that Pearl Jam never meant to release. So how does an accident like this even happen? To get it, you have to go back to 1998. Pearl Jam was on top of the world, sure, but they were also a band that was always changing and always evolving. They'd survived the whole so-called grunge explosion that made them famous in the first place, and then they spent the rest of the decade actively fighting against that same fame. They took on Ticketmaster, they stopped making music videos, and they kept a lower profile than they had in the earlier part of the decade, all just to keep their sanity and focus on their music. But inside the band, things were changing too. In the spring of 1998, right in the middle of the tour for their album Yield, they parted ways with their drummer Jack Irons. Irons was a longtime friend, but the grind of touring was just too much, and he had to step away for his own health. This left Pearl Jam in a really tough spot. They were on a massive tour, and they needed a drummer like yesterday. The call went out to another Seattle rock legend, Matt Cameron. Cameron was a powerhouse, famous for his drumming in the recently broken up Soundgarden. He'd known the Pearl Jam guys for years. They were friends and peers who would even work together on the Temple of the Dog project, and he even played on Pearl Jam's early demos. Still, the call was a shock. As Cameron put it, "I got a phone call out of the blue from Mr. Edved, Stoney, and Kelly. I was ambushed. It was really short notice." He was thrown right into the fire. His first gig was on Letterman, and then it was straight onto a major tour where he had to learn a catalog of over 60 songs. For a band as tight as Pearl Jam, bringing in a new member, of course, is a big deal. Cameron wasn't just replacing a drummer, he had to find his own rhythm inside their machine. As the tour wrapped up, the band wanted to do something special for the people who had stuck with them through all the years. Their official fan club, the 10 Club. For years, Pearl Jam had sent out an exclusive single every Christmas as a thank you. It was a tradition, a way to share something special and personal, far away from the record industry pressure. For a 1998 single, they figured they'd record something that was really quick, really easy, and fun. They had no idea that this simple gift would turn into their biggest commercial hit of their lives. It's these kinds of hidden stories that make music so fascinating, right guys? The stories of accidents, luck, and things that just weren't supposed to happen, but ended up changing a band's career forever. If you love digging into stories behind the music, make sure you subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our uploads. This whole story doesn't start in some fancy recording studio or a tense meeting exchange with a record label. It starts at the Fremont Antique Mall in Seattle. The band's frontman Eddie Vedder was a huge vinyl nerd, and he was out crate digging when he found an old 45 single from 1961. That song was called Last Kiss by a flamboyant showman named Wayne Cochran. Cochran's original version was full of that raw teenage angst of early rock and roll, but it completely flopped on the charts. The song tells the brutal story about a teenage couple on a date. The guy's driving too fast, they crash in the rain, and he wakes up to find his girlfriend dying. With her last breath, she gives him one last kiss. Where can my baby be? The Lord took her away. It was a classic teenage tragedy song that was really a whole subgenre that was popular in the late 50s and early 60s. While Cochran's version really went nowhere, the song was covered in 1964 by a band called J. Frank Wilson and the Cavaliers. Their version proved to be a monster hit, going all the way to number 2 on the Billboard chart, nabbing them a gold record. Where can my baby be? The Lord took her away from me. I do want to point out there was a whole series of investigative articles that questioned whether the song ever hit number 1 as well, but I just thought that was an interesting side note. It was by the late 90s the song was mostly forgotten and it was just a relic of pop music history, but the story of the song is actually just as tragic as what happened to J. Frank Wilson. In 1965, while he was traveling in a station wagon with his band to their next gig, their vehicle crashed head-on with a tractor trailer when their driver fell asleep. The driver died instantly, but J. Frank survived with severe head injuries, a broken rib, and a broken ankle. He soon became addicted to pain medication, and as a result of his head injuries, he started to suffer from seizures. He ended up having to sue his record company to get the royalties he was owed. But when it was all said and done, he only walked away with $3,000, and he could never replicate his past musical success. By the 80s, he ended up back in his hometown doing janitorial work, and he ended up dying in a nursing home just short of his 50th birthday. A month after he passed, strangely enough, a promoter in Toledo claimed to have booked J. Frank Wilson for a concert, but a confused fan told the promoter that the musician had died 1 month prior, so the appearance was canceled. It turned out someone was impersonating the musician. Getting back to Pearl Jam, Vedder bought that old record for a couple bucks, totally captivated by its simple yet tragic story. He played it over and over, becoming obsessed with it, and eventually brought it to the band, suggesting they learn it. The goal wasn't to create some masterpiece, it was just for fun. They worked it out during a sound check before a show in Washington, D.C. And the way they recorded it, it was about as lo-fi as you can get. Bassist Jeff Ament said, "It was the most minimalist recording we've ever done." They spent almost no money mixing it, just capturing the raw energy of the band messing around between shows. The quick, unpolished soundcheck recording was put on the 1998 Fan Club single, and included as a B-side to that single was their cover of the old soul song Soldier of Love. And for Pearl Jam, that was it. Story over. It was a gift for a few thousand of their most loyal fans, a fun little release and a thank you. They had zero intention of it ever being heard by anyone else. Yet somehow a radio programmer got their hands on a copy of that Fan Club single. No one's totally sure who played it first, but by the spring of 1999, Last Kiss started popping up on the airwaves all across the US. In an era of super polished pop and slick rock production, this raw, almost demo-quality recording just cut through everything else, and listeners responded overwhelmingly. Radio stations were flooded with calls from people asking, "What is that song and where can I buy it?" The problem was, you couldn't. It wasn't for sale. This, of course, just made people want it more, and the song's popularity grew on its own, a genuine word-of-mouth hit that the band and their label were totally unprepared for. Eddie Vedder was on vacation in Hawaii when he got a call from the group's manager, Kelly Curtis, about the song's success. He later recalled, "It seemed surreal to me. Even crazier was that I turned on the radio and it was playing first thing. It's the biggest song we've ever had on radio and it wasn't even for sale. That's much more exciting and magical than accomplishing some successful marketing plan." Finally, with the public demand getting overwhelming, the band and their label finally gave in and officially released the song as a single on June 8th, 1999. It just exploded. Then by the end of June, it went from number 49 all the way to number 2 on the Billboard Hot 100 chart the following week, representing the largest leap in the chart's history. That made it Pearl Jam's highest charting single in the US ever. It went gold and hit number 1 in countries like Australia as well as Iceland. So you're maybe wondering, what was number 1 and 3 at the time? Number 1 was Jennifer Lopez with If You Had My Love, and number 3 was Ricky Martin's Livin' La Vida Loca. The band members themselves were just baffled. Guitarist Mike McCready said, "It just blew up. We had no idea. It just proves over and over again when people try to figure out what a hit is, nobody has a clue." Guitarist Stone Gossard felt the same way, amazed that just finding a great song by chance worked so much better than trying to engineer a hit from scratch. The original song's writer Cochran, who was now a preacher by 1999, was asked about his thoughts on Pearl Jam's cover, which he responded, "It's a really simple song, not a lot you can do with it, but I think it's very sound. Pearl Jam did a very good job. It's not as staccato as the one Jay Frank did." Cochran didn't even know Pearl Jam had covered the song until his grandson brought him a copy of their single one day. He added, "I'm very appreciative that they did it. Cochran ended up passing away in 2017. But the story doesn't end there. Because in true Pearl Jam fashion, if they were going to have an accidental hit, They were going to make it count for something. Instead of just pocketing the money from this unexpected hit, Pearl Jam decided to do something profound. They announced that all the proceeds from the Last Kiss single would be donated to support refugees of the Kosovo War. The song was also put on a charity album called No Boundaries. In the end, this little cover song, found by chance in an antique store, helped raise thousands of dollars for relief efforts. A few years ago, Post Malone shared a video of him performing an acoustic rendition of Last Kiss. Last Kiss became this strange yet beautiful chapter in Pearl Jam's story. It was the first recording and first major hit for their new drummer Matt Cameron, cementing his place in the band. And it's still their biggest commercial hit on the singles chart, a title held not by one of their giant anthems like Alive or Jeremy, but by a stripped down cover of a 60s tragedy song. And really, this whole story is, well, so Pearl Jam, a band that always put their music and their fans ahead of business, accidentally scoring their biggest hit from a fan club only record. They took a moment of pure chance and turned it into a massive charitable effort. It just goes to show you that sometimes, in an industry obsessed with manufacturing the perfect hit, the best songs are the ones that were never meant to be hits at all. They were born from a simple yet honest love of music. When Pearl Jam released Yield in 1998, they made two notable changes of their most famous stances from the mid-90s. After a lengthy and well-publicized conflict with Ticketmaster over service fees and ticketing practices, Pearl Jam had avoided venues affiliated with the ticketing giant for several years. However, with the Yield tour, the band had eased their boycott. They began performing at venues that used Ticketmaster again, allowing them to tour more extensively and reach a wider audience, something that had been difficult during their stand against the company. Pearl Jam had also stopped making traditional music videos after 1992, believing that visuals could distract from the music itself and result in overexposure. With the release of Yield, however, they softened their position by creating a music video for the single Do the Evolution. Although the band members did not appear in the video, its animated format and striking visuals marked the return to the music video promotion format after several years. During the Yield era, Pearl Jam became more flexible about both touring logistics and promotional methods, which reflected a shift towards reconnecting with their fans and focusing on their music above all else. That brings us to the end of today's video, guys. Thanks for watching. Let me know your thoughts on Pearl Jam's cover in the comments section below. And if you have suggestions for future topics, let me know in the comments as well. And we'll see you again on Rock and Roll True Stories. Take care.